Hello and welcome. Today we are going to see what is STAR method. We are going to break down one of the most powerful tools you can use to succeed in your job interviews. By the end of this session, you won't just know what the STAR method is, you'll have actively practiced it and built the foundation for your own compelling interview answers. Whether you are a recent graduate or a seasoned professional, this technique will help you showcase your skills with confidence and clarity. Let's get started. So, let's set the stage. We've all been there. You're in an interview, things are going well, and then you hear it. Tell me about a time when, or describe a situation where. These are called behavioral questions, and they can be intimidating. You might hear things like, tell me about a time you faced a conflict with a coworker. Describe a project you led from start to finish. Or the dreaded, give me an example of a mistake you made and what you did about it. Why do interviewers do this? Why not just ask, are you a good leader? Or are you a good problem solver? The answer is, there's a core belief in hiring and psychology that past behavior is the best predictor of future performance. Anyone can say they are a great team player. Anyone can say they work well under pressure. But a hiring manager doesn't want to hear a hypothetical answer. They don't want to know what you would do. They want to know what you did do. They want proof. They are looking for concrete evidence from your past that proves you have the skills they are looking for. This is where so many candidates stumble. They ramble, they go off on tangents, they forget the point of the question, or they give a vague, general answer. We need a way to structure our answers to avoid these pitfalls. And that brings us to our solution, the STAR method. If behavioral questions are the problem, STAR is the solution. It is a simple, structured, and incredibly powerful technique for answering these questions. It provides a framework, a simple-to-follow map that ensures your answer is clear, concise, and compelling. It's not a trick, it's a communication tool. It helps you tell a complete story, hitting all the points the interviewer is listening for, and then helps you know when to stop talking. It ensures you provide the context, describe your specific role, detail your actions, and most importantly, highlight the positive result. So what does STAR stand for? It's a simple acronym for the 4 key parts of your story. First, S for situation. This is the setup. You're setting the scene. This is the who, what, where, when of your story. It's the context. Second, T for task. This is your responsibility within that situation. What was the specific goal you were assigned? What was the challenge or task you needed to complete? Third, A for action. This is the core of your answer. What did you do? What were the specific steps you took to address the task or challenge? This is about your action. And finally, R for result. What was the positive outcome? What happened as a result of your actions? Situation, task, action, result. When you use this framework, you're building a complete, easy-to-follow narrative that directly answers the interviewer's question with a real-world example. Over the next few minutes, we are going to do a deep dive into each of these 4 components. Let's start with S for situation. The goal here is simply to set the scene. You need to give the interviewer just enough background information for your story to make sense. This should be very concise, think 1 or 2 sentences at most. You're just establishing the context. For example, in my previous role as a project manager, our team was launching a new software product. Or, during the annual sales campaign, our team was tasked with. That's it. You've set the stage. What you want to avoid is giving too much detail. We don't need a 10-minute history of the company, the complex names of all the 15 people on the team, or a lot of internal jargon. Just the critical context. Next up is T for task. Once you've set the situation, you need to define your specific goal or responsibility. What was the challenge you were facing? What was the objective you were supposed to achieve? This is where you clarify your role. My task was to resolve the client's complaint. Or I was responsible for analyzing the sales data and finding the discrepancy. This task part is important because it creates a bit of tension. It defines the problem. We were behind schedule and my task was to get us back on track. Or the client was unhappy and my task was to retain their business. Now, a quick pro tip. In many of your stories, the S and T will be very closely linked. You might find yourself combining them into a single setup. Like in my last role, I was tasked with overhauling the entire customer service manual. Okay, now we arrive at A for action. Listen closely because this is the most important part of your entire answer. This is where you will spend the most time. Around 60 to 70% of your answer should be focused right here. Why? Because this is where you show what you did. The single biggest mistake people make in interviews is using the word we. They say, we analyzed the data and then we decided. The interviewer is left wondering, okay, but what did you do? Were you the one analyzing the data or were you just in the room when it happened? You must use I. This is your time to take credit for your work. I analyzed the data. I coordinated with the other three departments. I built the presentation. I presented the findings to the executive team. Be specific. Don't just say, I handled it. How? What were the steps? First, I pulled the report. Second, I cross-referenced it with the old data. Third, I identified the three key errors. Use strong, confident action verbs. I led the team. I designed the new workflow. I resolved the conflict. I implemented the new system. This is your chance to shine. And finally, R for result. You've set the scene, defined your task, and detailed your actions. Now you have to finish the story. What was the outcome? What was the result of your actions? This is how you prove your value. And the number one way to prove value is to quantify it. Numbers are the most powerful way to show impact. Look at the difference. A good answer is, and the project was a success. A great answer is, and we launched the product on time, resulting in a 15% increase in Q3 sales. See that? That second one is powerful. It's specific. It's memorable. Always try to find a number. I reduced errors by 25%. I cut down response time by 30 seconds. I onboarded 5 new clients. Now, what if you don't have a number? What if the result was qualitative? That's fine too. Just describe the positive impact. My actions resolved the team conflict which improved our workflow and team morale. Or the client was thrilled with the solution and signed a new 2-year contract. A great bonus tip is add one final sentence. What I learned from that experience was, this shows self-awareness and growth mindset. Okay, now let's put it all together. Here's a classic interview question. Tell me about a time you handled a difficult customer. Let's break down a great star answer. S situation. A customer called in angry because their order was late. Short, simple, clear context. T task. My task was to find their order, calm them down, and ideally save the sale. Clear objective. A action. I actively listened to their complaint without interrupting. I apologized for the delay and empathized with their frustration. I confirmed their details, then I tracked the package and saw it was stuck in a warehouse. I immediately called her logistics partner to get it on the next truck. And I upgraded their shipping to overnight for free. I also gave them a 10% discount code for their next purchase as a further apology. Notice all the I statements. I listened, I apologized, I tracked, I called, I gave. R for result. The customer's tone changed completely. They were grateful for the quick action and for me taking ownership. They received their package the next day and they even left a 5-star review on our website mentioning my name. See how that works? It's a complete, compelling story. It's concise and it directly proves that this person can in fact handle a difficult customer. Alright, that's enough of me talking. Now it's your turn. We are going to take the next 35 minutes for an active practice session. I want you to please grab a pen and paper or open a new document or text file on your computer. We are going to do this in two parts. First, for activity 1, I want you to take 15 minutes to just brainstorm. Think about your career. This could be from your current job, a past job, an internship, or even a major university project. I want you to brainstorm 5 to 10 key stories. Think about times you were successful, times you failed and learned, times you had a conflict, times you showed leadership. Just jot down a few words for each, like the Q4 report crisis, or the difficult teammate, or the big client pitch. Please pause this audio now for 15 minutes to complete this activity. When you return, we will move to activity 2. Short pause. Welcome back. Hopefully you now have a good list of potential stories. Now for activity 2, we are going to take the next 20 minutes. I want you to pick one of those stories from your list. Just one.
And now, I want you to write out the STANR for that story. Don't worry about perfect wording or making it sound professional. Just get the facts down in simple bullet points. What was the situation? What was your task? What were the specific actions you took? And what was the measurable or positive result? Just get the raw materials down. We can polish it later. You have 20 minutes. Go ahead.
All right, time is up. How did that feel? You should now have the basic skeleton of one powerful STAR method answer. You've done the hardest part, which is just getting it out of your head and onto the page. Congratulations, you are already 90% ahead of most candidates. Now that you've built your first story, let's talk about how to perfect it and prepare for your interview. Here are my final tips for success. First, prepare 5 to 7 key stories just like the one you just started. You don't need 50. You'll find that one good leadership story can also be adapted to answer a problem-solving question, or a team conflict story can be adapted for a communication question. Have a small, flexible portfolio of your greatest hits. Second, practice but don't memorize. This is critical. You should know the bullet points of your story inside and out, but don't memorize a word-for-word script. If you do, you'll sound robotic, and if you lose your place, you'll panic. Knowing the bullet points lets you sound natural and conversational. Third, listen carefully to the question. Make sure you're adapting your story to what they actually asked. Fourth, be honest and positive. Even if the question is about a mistake or a failure, the story shouldn't be a tragedy. The action and the result parts should be focused on how you took ownership, fixed the problem, and what you learnt from it. Finally, keep it concise. The STAR method is your tool to prevent rambling. Aim for about 2 to 3 minutes per answer. That's the sweet spot. And that brings us to the end of our session. We've defined behavioral questions, we've broken down the S, T, A, and R components in detail, and you've already started building your first story. The STAR method is your key to unlocking confident, structured, and impactful answers. Remember to prepare your stories, focus on your I statements, and quantify your results. Thank you so much for your time and participation today. Good luck in your interviews.